All right, team. Today I'm going to quickly show you how to upload content to Contentful using the Content Management API. So our use case, I'll quickly jump over and you see, so we're still working on this Lavella page. Down the bottom here, we have a contact, basically a quote form, which we are rebuilding this one. But when we submit, we want to store that quote in the Contentful UI. And then also there are attachments as well, so some files. So rather than implementing a backend, we're just going to be using Contentful to do that. So let's jump in and see how we can do it. So the first piece here that you can have a look at. So what I like to do is I built a component called quote form. And that means that we can just drop that in wherever we need to. So for instance, this is the landing page. So open that up, you can see it here, and then we're just using quote form. So we will use this form on multiple pages. So by making it a component just easier to reuse. Then inside the quote form, what we do here is we have a convention I like to use is creating a hook just to contain all the logic rather than building it straight into the component. Also means if we ever want to rebuild another quote form that looks different, we can just use the hook and all the logic's there. So if we jump inside of that, so what we have here is, I'm not using a form library in this project, just because it adds another dependency that we will need to manage. And it's a very simple form. We don't need any complexity here. So we're just going to use React state over here. And then I've just defined the default state type. You can see the address is a bit of a strange one because we are using React select, which comes with this Google autocomplete component. So this thing uses reselect, so we just needed to use, that's how it returns its value. So it's not a string, but an object. We define a default state here. So the fields that we want to collect, so we're going to have the address, email, first name, last name, phone. And then I'm just passing that into use state when we initialize. And we got state and set state. Now what I've done here is I'm just exporting state as a whole. And then I like to define callbacks here. So hooks always, for me, convention have callbacks. And these are the things that, like the functions that you can use from the hook. Now, we've just redefined set state here. And the reason being is so that we can do something like this. We can say set state, and then we can pass in an object. So we could say address, and then we could say, one street, and we could also do first name. It allows us to, if you want to change multiple values at once, we can pass through an object, right? Rather than having a set state where you have to pass one thing at a time. So we pass through an object, and then what we do here is we grab the previous state from the state hook, and then we spread in previous state and spread in new state. And that way we can have the most recent up-to-date state just by using this previous state here. Okay, so that's the quote form in its current form. So you can see here we're just complaining we need to add this value in, industry. So I just started this the other day. So what I want to do today though quickly is we want to work out how we can use this content management API, all right? So Contentful has the two different APIs, where the one is the actual content display API. Let's just go in here. So if we go into the content delivery API, I should say. And that's how we can read our data. But then we also have the content management API, which is how we can create data inside of Contentful, all right? So we create new content like this. And what we're interested in here is the entries. So if we scroll down in the docs, they have a little section here for entries. And the entries, what we want to do is we want to be able to create an entry. So we're going to need to set up a new model, which will be, I guess, will be a quote request model. And then we're going to have the fields that we're collecting from here. We're going to post those up into Contentful. And then we're also going to have the need for files. So in the old one, you can see here we have floor plans. So the user can actually upload some floor plans against the request, so that when the team at Lavella are looking at this quote, they can actually see the floor plan and get a bit more context. All right, so let's have a look at how we can start implementing that. Okay, so inside of Contentful, I've logged in and I've gone in then into the website space and I've gone into content model. Now inside of the content model, you can see there's a few things here already, but what we want to do is we want to add a new content type. And what this will be a quote request. Okay, now we're going to create that. Now we're going to start adding fields. Okay, so the first thing that we want to add here, we're going to working through basically this. So I guess industry is going to be the first thing. So it'll be here text. And a lot of these fields are just going to be text. I think we'll get Contentful to define the form data here. We could create like a whole bunch of industry. We could create a model for industry and then have them all defined, but I think it's not going to be that dynamic. It's kind of set once and move on. So we'll just create short text here, industry. It's not the title. We'll use the name, I think, of maybe the address as the title field. So we'll confirm that one. We'll add another field here and we'll go address. Now we'll use this one as the title field. It is required. Doesn't have to be unique. So we're going to hit that. We'll make that first. Now the other ones, so we've got first name, last name, email, phone. So let's go. Here we're going to go, let's just see what else. Do they have anything like phone number? I think we just go here, first name. Yep, it's required. We're going to add another one, text, last name, required, email. All right, and then you can set, it is required, you can set here, match a specific pattern, and we can actually say email, like that, okay? And then we can say here, we can go next one, we can go phone, required, yep, we want to require that. Let's see if they have a phone. They got US phone number, but we don't want that, so let's just leave that for now. Okay, address, industry, first name, last name, email, phone. All right, let's save that model. Sweet. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to test, can we actually create, can we create quote requests? So I'm going to actually pull this type out. It's probably the most important field. So for the user, actually in the team at Lavella, this will be one of the most important places to look. So what we want to do here is we want to actually see now, how do we use, or how do we create a new entry? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into Postman first, just for a sanity check and see how we can just post this data up and then actually create the entry. So to get started with the content management API, we need to go into settings, CMA tokens, and then we need to create a token. So we're going to hit create a personal access token and then grab that and use it in Postman. Okay, so once you've got your token, we want to open up Postman here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to say we've got a bearer token and we're going to pass in a token here. So this will be where you put your token, all right? So chuck that in there. And then what we want to do here, so it looks like, I think we need the content type as well. So let's go here. Let's go content type. Content type. It's this. All right, so chuck that in there. Yep, so that's exactly what it is. So if you look here, you can say when creating a new entry, you need to pass the ID of the desired content type as X contentful content type. All right, so we need to grab that, chuck that in the headers, and then we'll go and grab the ID. So to get the ID, we go to the content model, click on the quote request, and we hit copy ID. Now we can chuck that ID there. That's not you, Chief. Surely not. Is that the ID? It might be. Content. Yeah, right. Okay, so the ID is literally just quote request, right? Okay, so that's easy. All right, sweet. So next, let's see what else we need. Let's look at the request down here. So this is the body, which is JSON. So let's grab this. We don't need all of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass in here and we're going to say this is raw JSON. Let's hit that in there. We don't need the metadata right now. But what we're going to do here, I wonder if you have to pass through these fields with the locale there in the US. But what we want to do is let's look at the fields that are required. So we need the address. So what I'm going to do first is let's just try, that's a trailing comma. Let's just try it like this, and then we can try the other way without that as well. So we're going to say industry. All right, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6. So then we got first name, last name, email and phone. All right, so email, bacon is healthy, no way. All right, so let's add in the email at website.com, the phone number, last name, there we go, Ken Group, and I am a homeowner, and my address is 4/16 Clark Street, Narrabeen, New South Wales. Let's see how it comes out. How does it come out? Sydney, NSW, Australia. Okay, it doesn't include the suburb. All right, sweet. Let's hit send and okay. Well, there's a mistake here. We need to get the actual. We need to post to there. And then we also need the right URL, right? So it's going to be spaces, but we need to find the base URL. So where is the base URL? Let's find that. Here's the base URL. Okay. So we need to find the space ID, so I'll grab that. All right, so we're going to just chuck the space ID in here. Environment staging. Okay, to find the environment, we go to settings, environments, master. So that's the only one that we're running right now. So we're going to chuck that there. All right, let's hit send and see how we go. Error, access token invalid. Great, all right. Yeah, so obviously it's invalid because it's just sending tokens. I need to copy and paste the actual one. Okay, so I've updated that. Hit send. There we go. So we're getting a 201. So that looks good. Created. So you can see here it's got linked to a space. It's got an entry. It's got all this. It's got the fields. Now let's go and see if we jump into content. Boom, there it is. Okay, so that's, and you can see it's set the status to draft, which is good. So that's useful if you're actually using Contentful to, someone could add content to Contentful and then you were reading that. It wouldn't just go publish straight away, that you actually have to use the publish endpoint. So that's cool. Doesn't really matter for quote responses like this. But if we jump into it now, you can see there's the address we sent, industry homeowner, Ken, grief, email, phone, all there. All right, so that's awesome. So that's working. So now what we need to do is we need to implement that inside of the Next app so that we can actually, when someone hits send, it actually goes and makes this post request to Contentful, and then we get the response back. So let's do that. Okay, so I've updated the access token. Now if we hit, I'm gonna hit send. We get a 201, so it's created, that's awesome. Now we jump into our content, Boom, 516 Clark Street's right there. Boom, all the details, all right? So now that's ready to go. So now what we need to do is we've validated this all works. We know the format we need to send it in. Now we need to just go and add that to Next.js and send that away when someone hits submit on the quote form. So let's do that. Okay, so Contentful actually has a JavaScript package here that we can use. So for us, I think what we want to do here is we still might want to use the Next.js API as our endpoint, only because we might want to do more than one thing. So with Contentful, what it's going to do is going to just go and create our entry. But what we want to actually do is we also want to send an email, because we don't want it to just sit inside of Contentful, because the team won't actually realize they've got a new quote request. So we want to send an email as well. Because you could just use the browser. See if you can look at this thing. It works for Node and browser. So you could just literally call Contentful from the browser, let it do all the work, and then you get the response. But what I want to actually do is I want to call from our quote form, I want to call an internal API inside of Next.js. So let's go in and add in a new API endpoint inside of our app directory, so that we can get a post request from our front end and actually process this using Contentful. All right, so this is the first time I'm doing this one, but so inside of the app router, we're just going to create a new folder called API. And then inside that folder, we're going to create a new file called quote request. And then inside that, we're going to have route.ts, I believe. Let me just check. Yep, route.ts. And then we're just going to export this function, a post function, right? So let's just set this. I don't know why this is doing this. I'm just going to go here. I'm going to say X. I guess just leave it like this for now. All right, so what I want to see is, let us just sanity test our app here and see if it works. So we're going to go, we are running on localhost 3000. We're going to go API and we're going to go quote request. All right, so we've set that up. We're just going to change the method to post, and let's just post there and see what happens. We're getting an internal server error. Perfect. So what is it saying? That's not it. What is your problem? Unexpected end of JSON. Okay, yep, so that's because we're not sending any JSON here. Let's send some JSON. Let's say key value, send key value. Cool. So that's our endpoint is working, so that's good. So now what we can do is we can just go and set up our Contentful API. So I'm going to install. So if we go into, where are we running? Here, let's install Contentful. So let's just check here. So it's npm install. Let that run. Sweet. With the bearer token, that's great. All right. Sick. So it's very simple. So let's just go npm run dev. Love it. In our route, we're going to import Contentful, and we're going to set up a client. Now, probably not the best practice to do that here. We'll probably set it up in here like we normally do. So we're going to go Contentful client.ts just so we can share this. So I'll actually just grab that there, chuck it here. And we're going to say export default client. And now the access token will be process.env.contentful management. I'll just have to remember the name, content management API. So it's CMA token. Yep, that's fine. And this is probably going to cry. like that. Now we can go here and we can import our client. So we can go import Contentful client. So I'm going to just rename this to Contentful client. All right, grab that, save that, chuck that there. All right, so the first step, I like to just do these things in steps just so that for sanity checking ourselves. So we've set up the client. Now what we want to do here is this. So we're going to chuck that in there. Now, it's interesting because this is running through like a promise and then going then, which is promise chainings. But what we can do, I wonder if we can just literally, what is this doing for us? I wonder if we can step through this and await each one of these. I'm imagining that each one of these is returning. Yes, that's getting us a space. So this is going to be space equals await. Right, and then we're going to get an environment. Yeah, so that's this piece, and then what we do is we create an entry. Right, so this is the result. Then entry, console log entry. So that's the entry. All right, so we do need to have a catch there, so we can probably wrap that. But what we're going to do here is await. All right, so what I need to do is I just need to grab the names of what I've called these, the environment and the space ID. So I'm just going to quickly grab that. Okay, so I've just pasted those in. So I've got mine as Contentful space ID and Contentful environment. So we're grabbing the space, and then from there we're grabbing the environment. And then what we do is we create our entry here. So that was a quote request, if we remember correctly. So that was in here, this one. And Contentful probably is setting all those other headers for us. And then the fields that we sent looked like this. So let's just drop that in. We can remove the quotes. That was interesting actually. Oh yeah, it still has the E and US. So I guess that's always needed. The locale. Right. Sweet. I'm just going to chuck all these in. Okay, so we got the console log, and then what we can just log return is the entry. And why don't we just also just do, let's console log each one of these out while we're just debugging. Okay, now, so without doing anything, these are all hard-coded values. Let's just do a post request to our API and see what happens. Nope, what's that? Internal server error. What is the problem? What's your problem here? Cannot read properties of undefined reading create client. Okay, let me have a look. Okay, so it looks like when we install, it actually says that we can't run it because Contentful needs node greater than 18. So we might have to either downgrade the version or just change over NPM version. So NVM list, there's 19. So let's go NVM use latest. All right, so I need to install. I mean, I might just try use 19 while I have it here. Now I'm just going to have to npm I, install everything, okay? And then we're going to go npm run dev. Okay, so hopefully that's fixed our problem. So if we hit send, no, we've still got a problem. Cannot read properties of undefined creating recon. So let me just delete my node modules and reinstall and see what happens. Okay, so I found the problem. So the way I debugged this was I just clicked on Contentful Management here, opened up the types for me to have a look at, the declarations. And you can see here that this create client is all deprecated. And then it's exporting the create client method directly here. So what I've changed is I've just said import create client from Contentful Management, and then I just call that directly. And then now what we can see is when I called the API, you can see we're getting our response, right? So in here, you can see we console logged out space in the environment. There's the space, it's the website space, and here's the environment. And then we're returning the entry. So we can see here, entry has the metadata, it has the ID, it has everything going for it there, right? So there's the stuff. And now if we check in Contentful, we should have another 516 Clark Street a minute ago. Boom, done. All right, so that's now working, all right? So that's part one of getting that running. So now what we want to do here is we actually want to pass this response. So I'm going to just comment this out. I'm just return an empty object. Now what I want to see here is I want to console.log the response. So this is this is actually not the response, but actually the request. It's the JSON, right? So we're going to say JSON here, JSON body. Now if we just send that again, entry is nothing. That's not right. I mean, that is right. We're console logging, so that'll be in here. Key value, there it is. Okay, so we're getting that out now. But now what we are going to send to our actual endpoint is we'll send through these values, right? So we're going to say address. We're going to grab that, and I'm going to say that's now 85. We're going to have industry, homeowner. That's a really weird key. I would like to change that. I feel it doesn't really say much. This is going to be Greg. Last name, Greg Grief. Good on you, Greg Grief. We're going to have email and phone. So it's going to be Greg at email.com, and then we're going to give Greg his phone of, he's just got a landline, old Greg. No trailing. All right, so we're going to just send that up. Now what we can see is here's all our values, right? Perfect. So what I want to do here, and now it's always good to have some sort of try catch in here. Because we are passing JSON. Now that is good for something that's public facing. Because this is supposed to only be consumed by us, I'm not going to do that. Because I know it's going to be JSON. But really to do that, let's just not be lazy and show you how to do that. You're just going to do a try catch in here, right? So if something goes wrong, we're just basically going to return straight away, right? And we'll just say error. Right, so let's just see what happens here. So if we don't send JSON, we're getting an error. But it looks like it's not throwing any error for us to actually get error message. Okay, well anyway, so it's not crashing. So if we didn't have that, so let's just do it like it was, save that, and then just send it. What's going to happen? We're going to get a 500. So the server actually crashes. We don't want that. So we just wrap that in a try catch. Happy days. All right, so let's keep moving. So now what we can do is we can actually grab all of this out. I might even move all of this nonce into here. All right. And now what we're going to do is from here, we're going to expect our fields. So we're going to have address. So that's all destructured there. And then what we're going to do is let's grab this guy, move him into here. All right, so now we're going to create our entry. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to say here, we're going to pass through address, industry, first name, last name, email, and phone. Okay, and we're going to return here. All right. And that's just going to be the entry. Okay, sweet. Let's give it a spin. So can I chuck that back in? Perfect. Do we have 85 yet? No. So what we're going to do here is we're going to hit send. And now refresh Contentful. There it is, 85 Clark Street. All right. So we've now making the request from our backend in Next.js. Now what we want to do realistically here is we still want to send an email, right? So from here, we want to send the email to the sales team. So I'm going to save that one for next time. I don't know what Copilot thinks. We're definitely not going to be creating an entry. That's not how you send an email. But we'll need to send an email. And then also what we can do is from here, we can use the quote form and actually create a new callback, which will be under here. And it'll be submit form, right? And then from here, what we're going to say, we will actually trigger and call our endpoint, right? So I will save that one for next one because that will be a little bit longer. So I'll catch you on the next one.